in Leviticus 20:13, where God commands his followers to kill gay people?
Yeah, I think if you're going to make a society that is holy, with people that don't follow God's law, what are the consequences today if you don't follow the law? If you kill someone, we say, oh, death penalty. Same sex is an affront to humanity in the sense that it is not what the created world was meant to do. We were meant to have children.
The death penalty for people being gay is appropriate, you're saying?
In God's law, that is what it says, yes.
People are leaving Christianity in droves, and atheism has doubled in the past 10 years, in part because of this bigoted talk of kill gays. God commanded his soldiers to kill babies.
He's the arbiter of good and evil. He decides, and we accept.
No, we don't. The same thing happens with throwing stones. Jesus says, don't throw stones at sinners because you're also a sinner, right? Good stuff. I like that, all right? But then, earlier on, though, God said stone gay people to death, So again, the question is, why didn't it, if this whole mercy and love thing was so important to God, why didn't he come out and say that 1,000 years earlier or whatever in the Old Testament? Why did he wait until Jesus shows up to say this through Jesus? Is Jesus more ethical than God? Did God/Jesus change or evolve into a more kind being? Because we'd expect consistency from again, this is a consistency issue of Jesus does not seem like God.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the inconsistency is. If we have God saying, don't do this, right? Because of this, we're in this circumstance. And then you get out of that circumstance and you have the prophetically called out end of that circumstance, right? Where now it's to the whole world. It's not just the Jews, it's to the whole world, right? We have the offer of reconciliation with God. To have those two different circumstances, I don't see an issue where there's two different
covenants.
The fulfillment of the first.
Two different covenants, right? But I think that there is a problem with it. And the obvious problem is that gay people were being stoned to death. Okay? Not just them. There was a lot of massacres. God commanded his soldiers to kill babies. Okay? So there's all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff in the Old Testament that reeks of violence and vengeance and abuse against weak individuals, and it's so glaringly distant from the portrayal of God that Christ is giving us. And if Christ is God, then that means that it was Jesus back in the Old Testament who was saying stone the gay people. So it was Jesus who drowned all those babies in the flood.
Yeah, so I got two questions. The first one is, if God is God, who he says he is in the Bible, where's the issue with that, right? If he created us, he can do whatever he wants, right? The creature has no moral authority over the creator. He literally set the rules, right? That's the first question. Why would it be inconsistent? If you're actually going to take it at its face value, right? Let's say the Bible is completely true. In that system, where's the contradictory thing?
Well,
and then secondly,
can I answer that?
If it's not true, you're going to say, well, killing babies or flooding babies in the whole world is bad. I want to know why it's bad for that to happen, right? I'm not sure what you believe. I'm assuming naturalism, or evolutionary naturalism, right? Materialism, something like that.
Yeah, we can talk about all that. But what was your first question? I just want to take them both, one at a time.
If that's true, what's the real issue with certain molecules being changed into other molecules?
Through death. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but what's the real issue with that?
Yeah.
It's just molecules moving.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like we're talking about, there's two kind of issues or questions on the table, it sounds like, right? Just keep me on track. If I lose them, I'm a little high. We've got the one issue of, can God, the first thing you were kind of saying is if the Bible is true, then God can do whatever he wants. There's, he's the arbiter of morality, and therefore anything he says goes, and I have no right to question it. And then the second thing was, where do I get my morality, and how dare I say that killing babies is needlessly is wrong? Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. So for the first part, yeah. So no, it's possible that your God exists and is evil. It's possible that
No. You're still not accepting the full premise of the Bible.
okay, that God is the arbiter of morality, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, by that standard, if that were the case, if if objective morality is true, and if divine command theory is true, meaning that God, the your God specifically, not any of the other many gods, of which there are
Yeah, no. So we can't
thousands,
agree
but
that
it's
to
your God.
disregard those other gods. Yes.
Okay, sure. So with your God, then that would mean that yeah, your God, through that framework, your God would be
Mm-hmm.
moral for needlessly torturing
Yes.
babies.
Again, so that leads into my next question, which is, you're saying it's not moral.
Yeah.
So obviously you have perfect justification for your system. So please have at it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So instead of like the type of system that's just like, well, it says in this old book that this character of God is cool with killing babies, so therefore I'm cool with killing babies. Instead, I'm going to say, well, I know that looking at science, right, babies are sentient beings who have a brain and a nervous system and are therefore conscious and able to feel pain and pleasure and have a desire not to be drowned in a flood or stabbed by some soldier's sword. And the baby ain't doing us no harm. And if there's some powerful god out there, he could sure make sure that they have houses with new caretakers or whatever. If you want to say, well, their parents were so evil that the parents had to be destroyed, well, we could even grant that. But why kill the babies? Okay, so God could have like had the Israelites adopt those babies or something. Like there could have been any other, or if the babies had to die, they didn't have to be killed slowly in a flood, right? That's like torture. God could have just snapped his fingers, all right, but he didn't do
Yeah,
that.
I'm not
He
hearing
chose
that.
he chose the more he chose the more violent method of needlessly killing babies. So I am just trying to, my moral framework is just to try to maximize well-being and the preservation of life and the minimization of suffering and death for all sentient beings, be they human or animal, while respecting individual rights in the process as much as possible. So yeah, just trying to help the world without hurting
Yeah,
it.
I hope everyone can see that that's not a justification. That's what you like, and I don't think you care what I like. All right.
Well, you were
Clearly you don't.
asking for
But
you asked for
your
my moral
position is,
framework, and I was explaining
yeah,
how I
the
make
moral framework that
moral.
you're
I
giving
was
is
explaining.
based upon what you like. I
Yeah,
don't think you would agree that what we like should be our basis for a moral framework.
it's not about what I like. It's about what they need. It's about what the victims deserve, and it's a recognition of science that shows that they don't want to suffer.
What is science, dude? You gonna look up a definition?
I'm in shock that like go.
Yeah, well, science is a process, right? It's not like science can tell you that dashing a baby's head against a rock is a bad thing. It can't tell you that. It can tell you what
Yeah,
happened,
I know,
right? But it
but
doesn't
yeah,
say.
I know.
Well,
That's
so
why
basically,
I'm combining science and philosophy. I look at science and the evaluation that the empirical
that you hate,
evidence
that you
shows
don't
that
like babies
no,
getting
no,
dashed their head
no.
against.
Listen,
Therefore, it's bad.
hold on.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm in the middle of a sentence. The
Mm-hmm.
science shows that these type of beings feel pain and don't want to experience pain, and then I use my philosophy to realize, well, if I don't want it to happen to me and they don't want it to happen to them, and I think the world would be better without us killing babies left and right, newborn infants, okay, drowning them when we don't have to, okay, yeah, I don't think that's a good way to, create a productive society for obvious reasons. It's self-destructive and it puts myself and others in harm's way, all right, and so because I value those things, I make moral prescriptions that we should not do these certain things. And
Okay,
you're
so
compared to you reading a book that says it's okay to kill newborns.
yeah. So again, I don't think. I think I may have said it not as fancifully as you did, but what you said was you value not smashing babies' heads against a rock. Therefore, that is morally best.
They value.
Right?
They value that, and I value that. Yes, I value the fact that they
Okay.
care how they are treated. That's, I think,
Sure.
a good
So
moral
if
framework. I think that
I,
caring about others, I think that caring, using my empathy and caring about how others feel, is a good way to proceed morally.
So if I feel good by smashing a baby's head on rocks, that's
No, what? That is a straw man. That is a straw man of extraordinary proportion. I already explained. 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 Excuse me. That I have good reasons for wanting to protect babies from being needlessly tortured and killed. Those reasons being those babies feel pain and don't want to feel pain. Okay, and if you want to ignore that, this conversation's about to be done. But if you're just going to say, well, a book in the old days said I can do it, and that's all that matters.
So let me get this straight. Your basis is someone feels and I feel.
Your feel, no, but not all feels are equal, bro. Because if you say, well, I value the sensory pleasure of hearing the baby's skull crack, so therefore my moral theory of cracking baby skulls needlessly is just as good as your moral theory of protecting newborn babies from needless violence. Like, what are you arguing for, dude? I'm explaining clearly that some reasons are better than others. Some have rational weight that make for a better world, and some have irrational, destructive power. And you're throwing that all out and just saying, yeah, but that's just your value preference.
And I don't see how you refuted that.
Okay, well, defend your position. Well, then I'm done talking to you, man. But like, how about you defend your position? Because I did a fine job. Whether you acknowledge it or not, I did a fine job of representing why I think it's wrong to kill babies. Okay, now let's hear your explanation. Now, sorry, one second. Sorry, just a second. Now let's hear your explanation, your moral framework that explains why it's good, not just morally permissible, but actually the good thing to needlessly kill and torture and kill newborn babies because your God said so. Go ahead.
Hey, I did not say that. First of all, I did not say that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so again, back to the first question I asked. If it's God's world, he's the arbiter of good and evil, he decides. And we accept.
No, we don't.
Additionally, you say meaningless, which I think is in a very good category.
Wait, meaningless or needless? I said needless. I said needless, not meaningless. He could have some meaning behind it. Sure, I could have plenty of reasons or meaning behind needlessly killing babies, but still not cool.
Sure. And you say needless, I say it's not meaningless. And so there's some sort of value to it. Now, do I know? No. And I'm okay with not.
Okay, so you're just guessing that maybe God had some good purpose for killing these newborns and torturing them, in fact. Maybe God had, I don't know what that good reason was, but that's not for me to ask. Let's just keep it in God's hands. I just feel like you're surrendering your critical thinking faculties to some old book that supports slavery, killing gay people, and killing newborn babies.
Again, those are all things you feel very strongly about.
I do. I am a human rights activist. Yes, I am against the needless killing of gay people. I am a human rights activist. Where do you stand on the needless killing of gay people?
Dude, when does the Bible say to kill gay people?
Leviticus 20. Hey, let me answer that question, please. Leviticus.
The Old Testament. You don't listen to the Old Testament. You don't need to listen to the Old Testament.
Well, that's interesting, because the Old Testament has the 10 Commandments right next to the part where it says kill the gay people.
Yeah, we listen to a lot of
You need to listen to a lot of most of those. You don't need to listen.
How do you know which ones to listen to?
You can't eat both.
How do you?
If the Old Testament says something and the New Testament doesn't, that means you don't have to listen to it.
Oh yeah.
That's the thing.
Regarding Leviticus 20:13, where God commands His followers to kill gay people. So, what is your feeling about killing people for being gay?
Yeah, I think if you're going to make a society that is holy, right, that is following God's law, and you have people that don't follow God's law, what are the consequences today if you don't follow the law? If you kill someone, we say, oh, death penalty, right? And you guys can all debate that or whatever, but that's been held up for quite a long time. In most countries, it's kind of the thing. So they say that there are some things that you do that are an affront to humanity itself. And in God's view, it disrupts the created order of things so greatly that it is a sin against humanity. So the idea that same sex is an affront to humanity in the sense that it is not what the created um, world was meant to do. We were meant to have children, carry on, fill the world. We're not meant to have a self-love that directs itself towards the same sex.
And so the penalty for that is.
I would like to see something.
Wait, hold on, just a second, please. Thank you. And so the penalty, the death penalty for people being gay is appropriate, you're saying?
In God's law, that is what it says, yes.
No, I would like to say something. The Bible never says homosexuality is a sin. It only says having sexual relations with the same gender is a sin. If you are mentally a homosexual, that's only a temptation.
Okay, but you can't fulfill it. You're saying the sin is not to be homosexual, but to actually have gay sex.
I'm not
So
cheat on my wife. It's the same thing. We all have these desires that we should not act upon.
Same thing.
okay, so
You could have sex
you
again.
yeah, so you made an analogy earlier to murder. The death penalty for murder. Now, of course, I'm against the death penalty, but like putting that aside, surely you see the difference between murder and gay sex, right? Consensual gay sex between two adults, potentially who love each other deeply. You see a big difference.
I can love child pornography. That doesn't make it right.
Okay, are you now comparing? Okay, so it sounds like you've got murder and child
With
pornography and gay sex all in the same category?
Of things that people can desire that don't make them correct. Yeah, and I also put in adultery.
And worthy of the death penalty.
Are all of them worthy of the death penalty? No.
But gay sex is, right?
It's in the same category as an affront to the created order. And if you have any society, if you look through history, that succumbs to this and it says this is normal, it does not last very long for very obvious reasons.
Well, I'm glad we're making progress so that you don't have legislative power over us anymore. People are leaving Christianity in droves, and atheism has doubled in the past 10 years because, in part, because of this bigoted talk of kill gays.
Yeah, who's saying kill gays currently?
Your God, and you.
Yeah, okay, but
and you through your
how
God.
many people
You just said that you support the killing of people for having gay sex.
In the Old
Wait,
Testament.
what verse does it say in Leviticus?
Did I say that? No, I said the Old Testament. That's the law, and that's the law. What? I'm not sure.
Okay, so you were cool with it back then, but not now.
I think we should kill gay people.
Okay, so current day. So current day we shouldn't kill gay people, but back then we should.
Yeah, and again, there's a difference between when you have a nation chosen by God, right, to be holy, right? So they have actions that they cannot do, right? To be a light in that sense of what would a holy nation look like. And you know what? They failed so many times, it's not even funny, right? Because they're people. And that points us to the need of a Savior. And so today, we go, okay, it's very similar to the other sexual deviancy that we talk about. Anything other than man-woman, which is the created order. And we can see it everywhere throughout creation.
Well, there's a lot of gay animals. Like, there's a lot of animals who do homosexual stuff.
Okay, what's the ratio of gays to non-gays in the mammalian sector, please?
I'm not sure.
Because animals are beasts.
I'm not sure. But there's a lot of adult couples, like humans, who choose not to have kids because they want to save the environment because children are terrible for the planet. Okay, for one, but like lots of other
know about your suicide pact of other people not to have kids, or racial suicide pact of let's not have kids because Mother Earth.
Well, I don't know what racial you're talking about. No, and I'm just saying
the
I'm not.
Human race.
Oh.
The human race.
And I'm not saying necessarily to wipe us all out or anything, or that we need to go extinct necessarily.
Because humans are terrible.
But
everybody listens
no, you're exaggerating it because it doesn't have to be. Listen, it doesn't have to be an either or. It doesn't have to be everybody has to have kids or nobody's ever going to have kids. It can be somewhere in the middle or leaning one direction or the other, right? So we don't need. So the point I'm making.
Humans are terrible for the planet, and I'm assuming that implies that you like the and it's survived.
I want the
no.
yeah, but that doesn't mean that we need to fully go extinct in order to protect the planet. The planet only
I know
matters.
people-
The planet only matters to me insofar as it provides a hospitable home to sentient beings, humans and animals. Okay, so that's why I want to protect the environment. But
Okay,
you
and
real
again,
okay. So the point is though. All of the reasons aside for why people don't want to have kids, they could even be Christians and not want to have kids. Isn't that okay? Is it mandatory? Does Christianity mandate that you have children? Can you adopt instead of having your own? Can you not adopt and not have your own?
You can't have kids. You should adopt. Yeah.
Okay, I agree. If you're gonna have kids, you should adopt. I like that. Okay, but some people, yeah, but some people can't even adopt because of money or whatever, or mental health. Okay, whatever the case may be, or they just don't want to. They don't think they'd be good parents, or they don't want like annoying little kids running around. Whatever, they want a dog instead. Okay, all of that, none of that would end the human societies. Okay, if a lot of more people did that. Okay, so my question is, are you okay with heterosexual couples, not having kids, like married couples who don't have kids? Is that okay? Because the reason you were giving for why gay sex is so evil and worthy of the death penalty back then is because people are supposed to procreate and have kids.
Okay, is that the only reason I gave?
That it was also unnatural, but I think you were saying unnatural because you can't have kids if it's gay sex.
Is that all I said? It doesn't sound like you were listening.
I was trying, but it was, I wasn't really impressed by what you said, so it's hard to retain a bunch of nonsense. No offense.
Sure.
But, like, who's
no,
being harmed?
What you're saying is
who is being harmed?
I feel that, therefore, God.
No, I'm
That's
just,
silly.
who is being harmed? If it's
Pardon me?
if it's consensual, what's the problem?
Yeah, so in your worldview, there's really no problem. And I'm trying to make you see that in your worldview, there's also no problem with dashing kids' heads against the bricks.
No. That's not my worldview. That's your worldview, bud. That is your worldview. I'm gonna stop talking to you because you just switched this shit. You tried to say that I'm the one in favor of killing newborns when you're the one who said that, dude. I gave a bunch of reasons as to why it's wrong to do that, and you gave a bunch of reasons as to why it's right to do that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, in different contexts. Good grief. If you said, hey, dude, dash this baby's head against rocks, I would say, no way,
well,
you murderer.
Okay, but my shit applies back then also. Back then, it was still wrong to kill gay people and babies. I don't care what some old book says. That's the difference between us.
Right,
I've got consistent ethics.
I feel like this. The whole, science says this. Science says that if you dash someone's rocks against the head, a number of things physiologically happen in the universe. And that's all it says. You say, well, I take that physiological action to mean bad. Why? You're created by accident. You're an accident. We're all accidents. This is another accident.
Okay. Maybe I need to explain how I think my moral system came to be, as opposed to simply what it is.
Please do.
Okay, cool. So you might have heard some of this from other atheists before, but the idea is that through our natural selection and evolution and stuff, we evolved as a social species working in groups, and we realized that it's mutually beneficial for me to help my neighbor or a fellow tribe, down the way. Okay, because goods and services. We can barter, okay? We can trade and sell and these kinds of things. And so it can be beneficial for both groups. Also, in the process of doing that and in raising kids and stuff like this, we developed, mirror neurons in our brains of, where we have just a natural empathy, unless we're like a psychopath or sociopath or conditioned to not care about animals but only care about humans, for example. But generally speaking, we have... Sorry, 1 second. We have mirror neurons which help us to empathize. This is all just how our brains evolved over a long, long time. And so when we see someone else suffering, we realize what it's like when we suffer and that they're suffering that. We don't want it to happen to us. Therefore, we try to alleviate it from happening to them, if only because it, prevents us from suffering, having to witness their suffering, even if we don't actually care about them. But oftentimes, we actually do care about them in addition to wanting to ease our own suffering of witnessing their suffering. So this is just basic stuff. And then, as the thousands of years went by, literature was invented, and we started to suss out these moral ideas. Philosophers came up with different different moral theories, and here we are, you know. And so I was raised in a society part of, you know, that taught me, you know, certain things and certain laws and social norms, and I was specifically raised by my Christian parents, fundamentalist Presbyterian Calvinist Christian parents, about certain moralities, and as I grew older, I started to think for myself. I started to, sorry, just a second. I started to say, okay, well, society and my parents and whatever else has taught me good lessons, and I'm going to hold on to those ones, but they've also taught me a lot of bigotry, right? And so we shed away the layers of bigotry, hopefully, as the generations go by. So we learn not to be racist or sexist or speciesist towards animals, etc.
Okay, so I've got two questions then. That's a story. I'd like some evidence for the development, right? Please give some evidence to that. And then two, does that mean that your morality is based upon your society?
Like I said, my morality is based off a combination of, well, I don't know if free will exists, so that's a whole other thing, but like from what I can tell, it seems like I'm incorporating parts of my current society that I live in, also maybe factors of other cultures that currently exist, and then culture, you know, parts of cultures of the past, and then imagining cultures of the future that would be ideal. And yeah, like this is just, I'm just using all of the evidence. I'm using all of the best available evidence to come to what I believe is the most rational conclusion, which is just to be nice to everybody and not needlessly kill.
Oh, okay, but again, so your morality is what you think is a good idea.
Yeah, and I think I've got better reasons than another atheist who doesn't, you know, believe in a god or whatever, who says, who you know, is using their moral framework to come to something super destructive. Yeah, I think you and I would both look at that person, like you would look at the destructive atheist next to me, and you would say, well, the destructive atheist moral framework is not as good as the productive atheist Chase. Chase's moral framework may not be as good as my religious moral framework, but at least it's better than the guy who's like, kill everybody, right?
No, I wouldn't, because the framework is the same. It's, I would like to do X, I would like to do Y. But that's not my framework, and that's a bad framework.
Okay, well, I think that it's not just arbitrary. You're painting it as if I'm making some arbitrary choice of like,
So
I'm just valuing. Sorry, as if I'm just valuing this on a whim, or that I might as well have just flipped a coin as to whether or not I'm going to value smashing newborns' heads against the wall. You know?
No, what is the determining factor?
Sentience.
Okay, so why?
Because without sentience, they don't care how they're treated. Something that's not sentient cannot be harmed.
Okay, so you're saying that sentience means that, like, we all agree on sentience, sure. We can say, yes, we're sentient, I'm sentient, you're sentient. That's not an arbitrating factor.
Arbiting?
Yes.
Okay, I think, okay, so I disagree, and here's my reason why, is that if you, like, okay, the reason we don't care about a chair, like, you can kick a chair, and it's fine, you know, unless it's somebody's property or whatever, but, like, kicking a chair is fine because it's an inanimate object that's not sentient, doesn't care how it's treated, doesn't have a brain or nerves, can't feel pain or pleasure, okay? Morally irrelevant. But,
according to you.
Yes, according to me and like anybody else that you talk to, okay? So kicking a chair, totally cool. Kicking a human, totally different, okay? Because they're sentient. Now, if this human was not sentient, they would essentially be a chair, okay? They would not be awake. They would not be aware. They would not be able to feel pain or pleasure or have any kind of relationships. They would be brain dead. They would be in a vegetative, comatose state from which they would never recover, is the idea. So there's no need to consider them morally.
I'm not quite sure how you get this whole sentience matters. What exactly is sentience?
Consciousness resulting from a properly functioning brain. Okay, so it's the
brain.
Yes, it's the ability. Sentience. Let me just finish. Hold on. Let me just finish the definition for you. So sentience is like the ability to feel pain and pleasure and have subjective desires and conscious mental states. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Why do these electrons move in? Which is what you consciousness necessarily needs to be in your worldview. What grants these electrons special moral electrons? Like, why are they moral electrons now? Why is the brain matter?
Well, it's
chemistry in the brain more important than the chemistry in the chair or the rock.
because again, the chair is not the I don't know, like there's nothing in the chair that is like I'm not a neuroscientist, but like there's nothing in a chair.
Are there electrons on the chair?
Yeah, but they don't create a mind that's or an experience of a living organism that's able to feel pain and pleasure.
Okay, so those electrons don't move the same way. Explain to me why the movement of the electrons is super, super, super important to you.
Okay, whatever it is that creates consciousness, it's not like in any individual piece of those things. It's that the result is consciousness and sentience, and therefore that needs to be respected. Because again, you care. Listen, because you care how you're treated because you're sentient. If you were not sentient, you would not have the ability to care how you're treated.
Okay, I'm asking, why do certain electrons get to be more important than other electrons?
I answered that because the end result is a living organism that is sentient and cares how it's treated, and therefore worthy of moral consideration in my view. And for anyone to say otherwise, I explained. Because I value people, I value well-being, maximizing well-being and minimizing suffering. I don't want anybody, listen, I don't want any, I don't, listen, I don't want anyone to suffer, especially needlessly. And that sounds like a pretty good criteria for a moral framework. What are you offering as an alternative?
Pardon me?
What are you offering as an alternative?
I just did. The creator of the universe explains how the universe should work.
And that just means anything in the Bible?
The creator revealed how the creation works and how it ought to be. Yes.
Okay.
The arbitrariness of, well, I value this, therefore I'm going to do this, and everyone else ought to do this.
Well, again, it's not arbitrary. It's founded with good reasons. It's not arbitrary.
The good reason itself is arbitrary. How is that not arbitrary?
So
Where
how do
is
you
the objective standard that says the electrons in my head
Well,
need to do this?
First of all, who's to say it has to be objective? Like, I don't know if I'm an objective. Hold on. Well, no. I don't know if morality is objective or subjective. That's a tough one. I'm still trying to figure out. But I don't think it matters so long as we have good reasons, okay, and we have good conclusions. But what I'm asking is like, how do you make moral evaluations through your divine command theory? So, like, if you're presented with a modern day scenario. Like, how do you go about this? So let's take the trolley problem, for example. What is the Bible? What would be the biblical answer for the trolley problem? Do you the train? For anybody who doesn't know, the train is coming down the tracks. There's two tracks. It's coming down one where it's going to run over one person, but sorry, it's going to run over five people. It's going to run over five people unless you pull a lever, in which case it'll go to another track and run over one person. So should you pull the lever and be directly responsible for that one death, or should you just let nature run its course and be responsible for allowing five people to die?
Yeah, I mean, there's no hate in the book of Leviticus. It says
there's no what?
Here's what you do with the trolley problem, right? That doesn't exist. So
yeah, but surely you can use the Bible to you use the Bible as your guide for moral decision making.
Mm-hmm.
So go for it.
Yeah, what's interesting is the Bible's really not considered of every single philosophical quandary, and then says do this. I think Islam is, if you're going to look for something like that, Islam.
I'm not looking at Islam. I'm talking to you with your religion, though. No, this is not. Hold on, just yeah, but this is. I understand, but this is not a rare scenario. This is a very popular. This is the
question.
This is the most popular philosophical thought experiment. And it happens in everyday life to some degree, in the sense of, do I do an action if it creates more good outcomes for more people, even if it hurts one person in the process. We make these decisions at least once a year or something to some degree, not to the degree of people dying, but okay. So can you answer the question?
I mean, can I answer it? It's a very trappy question because if you answer one way or another, it's you know, there's a lot of implications of both.
Well,
Right? So
I mean, like
I don't
you've
know.
got the truth though, bro. You've got objective truth and ultimate morality. Your God told you through a Bible, a holy scripture, how to live ethically. So tell us what to do in that situation.
Okay. Well, you say that we run into this situation quite often. Personally, if I came into let's just say at work, someone made an error, and my boss says everyone's going to be punished if you don't tell me who made this error, right? I would say this person made that error. And you could say, well, you're choosing the good of the many over the good of the few. I would say, well, I'm telling the truth, right? So that's more of a realistic, moral, ethical question than there's a train going at someone, right? Obviously, I would try and save all of them.
We can come up
Yeah.
with a number of scenarios that aren't about utilitarianism versus deontology, these philosophical thought experiments about the trolley. We could do other ones that have to do with animal rights. We could do other ones that have to do with gay rights, etc., women's rights.
Mhm.
And you'll find a bunch of different Christians interpreting the Bible or different parts of the Bible in different ways than you and coming to
Mhm.
different conclusions than you. Do you consult the Bible every time you have an ethical issue?
It is a moral question. How ought we to use our money? How should we steward what God has given us? That is the question.
But
But it's not. It is a real question.
sure.
And it's something that I think about, right?
I-
How, should I give money to these people in Africa that ask me, right?
I
Should
mean,
right? It's
he-
there's a lot of questions. Like
yeah,
that,
for sure.
What does the Bible say?
Yeah, so
The
let's
question of the trolley. It's like,
yeah, let's get to the trolley because like you should be able because I can give you my explanation of how I would handle that
sure, I mean,
situation.
it's pretty arbitrary.
Eh.
It's basically what would Chase Avior do, and that's what Chase Avior would do. It's pretty arbitrary. There's not a real moral weight behind it. It is what you feel and what you think.
Well, see, and I think,
Regardless of whether it's
but
consistent
again,
or incoherent,
I
that's
think you're
the-
just doing the exact same thing, except you like
Mhm.
I don't think you actually have objective morality. I think you have subjective morality. It's just that your source, instead of like how my source is, critical thinking and analyzing the situation and looking at ethics and science, right? It sounds like the sorry, 1 second. It sounds like the
Mhm.
the subjective morality that you're going with is the authors of this Bible, even if, which I would argue is most likely just the subjective moral opinions of dudes 2,000 years ago. But even if we were to grant, for argument's sake, that a true God did write that Bible, then that's still just the subjective opinion. Like whatever's good is whatever God says. So it's still subjective, based on whatever He says.
No, that's the definition of objective. So if God says it, right, He is unchanging by definition, right? So if God
Really?
says it's not arbitrary. The word.
When we're talking about killing newborns, people have a very clear understanding of why it's unethical to needlessly kill newborns, etc., with no need to bring a God into it. Or they might say, well, God doesn't want us to do this or whatever. But in any case, the problem I have with your sense of divine command theory and objective morality and God, whatever God says, whatever God commands, whatever God does is automatically morally good because morality is dependent on God, then that means that God could do, literally, like, join me in a hypothetical here, God could do anything and it would be morally good. So, for example, God could order His followers to rape children. And this would be moral under your view, right? To needlessly just rape children would be moral because God said so, right?
If God created that world, there's going to be a lot of differences. You're asking me to like.
You're saying God would never do that, right? But I'm asking if.
Yeah.
If God did that, like if it was in the Bible, then it would be morally good, right? Because that's how divine command theory works. That's how you escaped the problem of slavery and killing babies and all that. Is whatever God says goes. So if the Bible said, God commands his followers to rape children, then then those followers raping those children needlessly would be moral, right?
I object abhorrently to the framing of this, and most likely what you're going to say after it, right? But by definition, if the creator of anything says it ought to be like this, then it ought to be like that.
Okay, that's a tough bullet to bite, but you bit down hard. All right, well, yeah, and then maybe what you're afraid of is the Holy Scripture I'm about to read. Numbers 31, 17 through 18. Kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that has known a man by lying with him. But all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. So that sounds like sex slavery and pedophilia to me. Again, that's Numbers 31, 17 through 18. And that's moral. According to you.
Slavery and pedophilia to you?
I'm sorry?
What makes that sound like sex slavery and pedophilia to you?
Okay, sure. So, again, kill every male among the little ones, kill every woman that has known a man by lying with him, but all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. So, later on in that verse, it does talk about the other spoils of the war, the plunder that they gathered from their enemies, and they divided up amongst each other like property, right? And they do the same thing with the captured women. And it seems like they even sacrificed some of them to God. 32 of them later on in that chapter. But in any case...
Can you read that part?
Yeah, we can get to that. But in any case, before we move on to human sacrifice in the Bible, this part, keep the women children alive for yourselves. What other reason would there be? If you're going to kill all the boys and all the grown women, maybe it's to keep these little girls as your little sex slaves, right? What? What'd you say?
Pardon me?
It seems.
Are they going to marry those women as it is in their law? To marry, you don't have sex before you're married. You marry.
The women children.
In the Jewish law, do you marry someone before you have sex?
You are supposed to marry them and then have sex. So you're saying that these kidnapped little girls would not be sexually touched until they were forced to marry their kidnappers?
Yeah, so I'm just asking you to try and let the Bible be consistent in that this is the law, right? And if they went by that law, they're not going to rape these children. No.
Okay. But you can definitely kidnap the little girls and keep them for yourselves. You just can't have sex with them until you force them to marry you once they come of age.
I'm concerned they spared some people, and you're mad about it.
What I'm mad about is the kill every male among the little ones and kill every woman that has not known a man. I'm also mad. I am sorry. Just a second. Hold on 1 second. I'm also mad about the following part where it says to take all the women children and keep them alive for yourselves, because it sounds like plunder and all those terrible things. But even if it's not, it's clear that if it did say that, even if it said more explicitly, you can have these little girls as sex slaves, that would be moral. That would be moral for you and for your religion and for the Bible and for God to command that.
Because the law of God is clearly against sex slaves, right? There's a lot of religions in that area that had temple prostitutes, right? And that was condemned again and again and again, over and over and over. And I think some of the Jews even did the same practices, and that was condemned again and again and again.
Yeah, but again, the little babies, like it says, kill all the males among the little ones. Yeah. So I don't think it's much of a stretch to I mean, the Bible's like, listen, hold on, just a second. I'll answer I'll be happy to answer your question in just a second once I finish this statement. I mean, I just don't think it's a far stretch, is what I'm saying. If your God says in the Ten Commandments, the God says, "Thou shalt not murder," but then over here that God is telling his soldiers to go kill little infants, and so that seems like murder, but I guess it's not murder because God's telling them to do it. But it just doesn't seem like a stretch then for God to, generally speaking, just like how he said in general, don't murder, but here I'll make an exception where you can go murder these babies. He might be making the same exception when in general he says don't have sex outside of marriage unless it's these little virgin girls that you kidnapped from this country you invaded. In that case it's okay to do these terrible things.
Yeah, that's just a story you made up in your feelings, right?
No. Kill
That
every male. Kill every male.
That happened.
Kill every male
Just
among
saying,
the little
it
ones.
seems like this. It seems like.
Well, I'm being generous. I'm being charitable when I'm saying it seems like, because it fucking seems like it. What are you talking about? I think you're in denial, man.
No.
It's not a far stretch. If God is going to say, okay, it's fine to kill babies, then sure, God would say it's okay to have sex slaves. There's not much a big difference between those two terrible things. But the point is that it doesn't matter.
If you're going to conflate war and murder, then I'm not quite sure.
You're not supposed to kill innocent babies in war. Especially, like, if right now we've got bombs. Listen,
According to who?
dude, okay, so you're saying then it is okay to needlessly kill babies in war. That's what you're saying? I mean, what are you doing, dude? I gotta end this conversation because, like, what are you telling me? You're telling me it's moral to needlessly kill babies in war. Why?
Okay, let me just ask you.
Why?
If you read
Leave
the
the
Bible-
babies alone. Be nice to babies. Like,
Okay, you may feel that way, but again, that's just a statement of your feelings, and I'm not particularly concerned about your feelings.
okay,
Don't
well,
worry.
I feel like this conversation has come to an end because
Sure, I
you
wasn't talking to
keep dismissing what I'm saying as just my feelings when I've given you sufficiently good reasons for having the feelings that I do, and the feelings I have lead to a better society wherein babies are not needlessly killed. But you're advocating for something else, and so I'm done.
When did
That's fucking crazy.